All right, people, this is a very special episode for a very special Super Bowl that just finished, Super Bowl 53. This is a special occasion because the first trailer for the only MCU movie that we have being released this year is coming out, and that being Deadpool 3, or as it has now officially been revealed, Deadpool and Wolverine. We will also later on be talking about some of the other trailers that have dropped, including for some some new trailers for movies that we already had trailers for, that being Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and The Fall Guy, while also talking about some of the new ones for some of the brand new ones that we got as well, that being for Wicked Part 1 and for Twisters as well. I'm joined not only by Luke of Luke Reviews, but also by Gal Balaban. Guys, you ready to talk about some trailers?
Absolutely.
Very much so.
All right. Onward and outward, people. All of that and more on today's episode of the Talking TV podcast. Stay tuned. All right, guys. So for those of you who don't know, like I said, it is about 1 o'clock for Luke and Gal's time, which means that it is very early. It is about 6:14 a.m. for me this time, which shows how dedicated I am to this thing, that I'm willing to get up this early in order to talk about the things that it is that I love. But real quick, before we actually start to break down these trailers, did any one of you guys actually watch the game in its entirety?
I watched about 80% of it. I fell asleep in various moments throughout, but I woke up in overtime, so I thought, okay, I gotta finish it now.
Yeah, I started watching the first half of the game, and San Francisco was ahead about 10-3, and I'm like, oh, they got this. And I keep forgetting the rules of football, which is that never underestimate, never think that whoever's ahead in the first two quarters is going to win, because I've been screwed over multiple times by that. I'm pretty sure that whenever it was that the Bengals were facing the Rams, and we're like, oh, the Bengals got this in the bag, and it's like, nope, the Rams ended up taking it at the end. Gal, what about you? Did you actually watch the game or no?
No, but I woke up and I saw the results, and rest in peace. But to each their own. Whoever's happy, not here to ruin that. And whoever else is mourning from the Bay Area, I'm with you.
Look, it doesn't look. All that I know from last night is that Taylor Swift fans won, and all people who are mad at her for supposedly ruining football lost, I guess. But apparently Travis Kelce didn't propose, so there was that. But guys, look, there was really only one reason why we were all tuning in for this Super Bowl. They had been hyping it up for a while. They're like, yes, it is official. The first trailer for the, at the time, untitled Deadpool 3 is finally dropping during the Super Bowl. We've been hearing about this movie since about fall of 2022, when they first announced that Hugh Jackman was returning as his iconic portrayal of Wolverine. It's funny because I actually saw a meme yesterday that basically described it. It's like, yeah, for all the other iconic characters that we've gotten, there have been like multiple recasts, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. Obviously, there's been like a different actor that's portrayed them throughout the 2000s, the 2010s, the early 2020s, all that. And aside, obviously, from Downey Jr., who has not played Iron Man since 2019, I believe that Hugh Jackman coming back to this part officially makes him the longest-running comic book character portrayal. So naturally, this was highly anticipated. Besides the fact that it's been 6 years, it'll have been, by the time that this movie comes out, since it is set to be released July 26, 2024, this will be the first time in 6 years that Ryan Reynolds has returned to play the character of Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, on the big screen, after having previously portrayed him in 2009's X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2016's Deadpool, and 2018's Deadpool 2. So naturally, there's a lot going into this movie, and that's before we even get into the MCU of it all. But so we've been hearing a lot about this trailer. It finally drops. It drops before the game even starts. Like they're like, okay, we got to get this out of the way, like immediately. Like I said, I think it's safe to say that like the Deadpool movies have made a pretty big cultural impact, to say the least. So with that being said, we finally got our first look at what this movie's going to be. Brand new director as well, Sean Levi, who Reynolds has kind of made like his go-to guy for previous efforts like Free Guy and The Adam Project. So guys, the trailer is finally here. What did you guys think initially? Gal, we're going to start with you.
Wait, you're confusing me. I'm pretty sure his first time as Deadpool was 2016. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, yes, that's right. Of course, we don't acknowledge what happened in the darkest timeline.
So yeah, I woke up, watched the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, and looks like a lot of fun. I do think I expected this first trailer to be funnier than it was, but that probably means they're just saving a lot of the best jokes for the movie, which is what a lot more movies should be doing. Um, when Matthew MacFadden showed up, I audibly cheered, and so like obviously we know that there was some sort of multiverse hopping having to happen. Now we know that's through the TVA, which we obviously saw through Loki, and it's going to be a very fun way to sort of because I feel like we've gotten so much multiverse and time hopping in the last 2 years or 3 years from Marvel, and now with this one, it seems like they're poking fun at that a lot more. They're like, okay, let's do this, but without having to be all like head achingly consistent with it. And yeah, I will say, you know, there are some action scenes in this where you kind of just have like the regular MCU white only palette. So I'm like, okay, you could have invested a little more in that, especially when you had David Leitch as the director of the last one, and the directing from that one was such a step up from the first Deadpool. But also good for them for having restraint and not actually showing Hugh's face in this one and saving that for a lot later. Like, good for them because they could have just had him in the whole trailer and you know had all the fan reactions for social media and shit. But good for them for like showing some of the big scenes or waiting to show some of the bigger Wolverine scenes a lot later.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That was actually probably the biggest surprise for me from this trailer. So, Luke, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I am amazed at their restraint. It feels like everything that they showed is from like the first 40 minutes of the movie, and maybe that's because they just haven't finished any of the VFX because they stopped filming not that long ago because of the strike and all. But either way, it got me excited. I like that they didn't actually show Hugh Jackman's face. Like we all know he's in it. This is just like a reaffirmation of that. Like, yeah, you see him, but you don't see him. So I enjoyed that. Very, very teaseful. I did forget that old Tom Wamsgans was in it, so that was a nice surprise. He's let him actually be British in this one, which was nice. And yeah, the rest of it feels standard Deadpool humor. You got the Disney stuff. There's gonna be a lot of Disney jokes in this
Yes.
movie. A lot of fourth wall breaking. That there was that suit up scene, which was very 2003 Daredevil esque. And yeah, it's just a good trailer. Like I said, main point didn't give too much away.
Yeah,
Linked some stuff with the MCU we know now, like the TVA and whatnot, and didn't show any of the surprise appearances that we've heard in the leaks and whatnot.
it's kind of baffling, honestly, that like it's only been a short amount of time that we've had this new weird multiversal saga of the MCU, but because of like what a mainstream and whole brand the MCU has become, with how familiar it is with everyone, you've just got like so much stuff that's been introduced, like the TVA, like obviously, Westview, like the Flag Smashers, like I mean, list off all like Kingpin and Daredevil are officially back and are mainstream mainstays in the MCU. Like you've got all of this new lore that's only been popped up and been made recent. And I still think probably the funniest thing is the fact of all the cameos that we've been promised that are going to show up in this movie. Jennifer Garner's Elektra, the 2000s Fantastic Four, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Wait, I don't know any of this yet, so don't.
Yeah, there's been
what's in the leaks.
It's all rumors right now. None of this has actually been confirmed, but but my surprise comes from the fact that of all the cameos that we've been promised, how restrained this was, because I feel like recently, right, the MCU's like, it's funny. I was actually talking with a buddy of mine last night after the game was done, and the biggest thing that he said that actually I thought was the most poignant is the fact that this reminds me a lot of what they did for the No Way Home campaign marketing, where No Way Home, that first trailer comes out, you don't even know that it's going to be like a multiverse movie until the end when when Alfred Molina shows up, and then the second trailer,
such a long trailer. I remember that.
It was, and then you get the second trailer and you have all of the other, you have like Green Goblin, you have like the outlines of some of the other villains, but you don't really get official confirmation of it and then you still don't even know that Toby and Andrew are going to show up until the movie. So I think that what this trailer did very smart was it kept the thing that we know for certain is going to be in this movie, which is obviously Hugh Jackman returning, and then save the rest. Other than like a quick shot where they reveal that one of the returning cameos is going to be Aaron Stanford's Pyro from the early 2000s X-Men movies, which I thought was just awesome. And it was a total blinker, you'll miss it moment, which I'm like, wow, like I didn't even I'm like, I feel like that's somebody that's going to be big and important, but I didn't even recognize him because it's been 18 years since we saw him the last time in the last X-Men, in X-Men The Last Stand. But yeah, other than that, other than the restraint that it showed and Tom Wamsgand showing up and kind of being the new Owen Wilson, which of course everyone's being like, oh my God, so it's confirmed the TVA. That means that Loki has to be in it. I'm like, okay, all right, like pump the brakes.
No, it's not. Don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, I'm not counting on it. The biggest thing for me was that, not in addition to the confirmation that like the scene where you've seen all the behind the scenes, you know, like that big kind of wide open desert field with with where it shows Deadpool and Wolverine fighting in front of the Fox logo. It like that, I noticed there was like a little hint, a little Easter egg in there that I'm like, okay, so they're setting up for Battle World in this one. This is like the official confirmation that like they're finally going to start to build towards Secret Wars. We've laid like all the groundwork with all the multiversal stuff and all the previous iterations, between Loki, between No Way Home, between Multiverse of Madness, all the other multiversal illusions that we've gotten, end of the Marvels, and now we're finally starting to lay the groundwork. Deadpool 3 is going to be the official thing that sets us up for Secret Wars. Whether they still go forward with Kang Dynasty or whether they end up making that a whole new villain, who knows? But the biggest thing also that we have to talk about, right, is the impact of the strikes and the fact that due to what happened and due to also negative test reactions, the MCU needing a desperate reset, they kind of course corrected, they pivoted. Deadpool 3, which was originally supposed to be one of several MCU movies that we were supposed to get this year, ends up now being, aside from the Sony Marvel movies, not only MCU movie that we get this year, but also one of only 4 superhero movies that we're getting this year after like the glut of superhero movies. And Luke, I wanted to bring this up because, as you mentioned very, very, very well, I would say, in your top 10 list that you just released, definitely go and check that out if you guys get a chance. It's the year of 2023 was definitely the year that the bill came due, as we say, for superhero efforts and the superhero genre as well, except for obviously Guardians 3 and Across the Spider-Verse, which is where, and you made a great point that James Gunn initially brought up, which is that the whole idea of superhero fatigue, it really is like a little bit of an illusion, which is that people aren't sick of superhero movies. They're sick of generic, mediocre movies that are clearly only made as cash grabs. And I guess my question for you is, do you think this is going to be another one of those movies that's able to straddle the line? Because there's clearly going to be a lot of corporate influence. And I've been of the opinion since the beginning that I'm like, as much as I love Deadpool and as much as Ryan Reynolds is able to break through the barriers with this, I'm still a little concerned that this movie is going to be a little bit too Disney-fied as opposed to the last two, as excellent as this trailer looks for the movie.
Because we're in uncharted territory with an R-rated Deadpool movie made by Disney. And I think it's definitely going to be a crowd pleaser because the Deadpool and Wolverine, that's like enough to get like a whole bunch of audiences in there. How much they balance of it, okay, how much is this setup, how much is this fun buddy comedy movie? If they balance that well, I think it's going to turn out pretty well. But it has that loaded pressure of being the only MCU movie, and like you said, one of the only superhero movies. You said 4. I don't even know. Like I can name
Madam
3.
Web, Kraven the Hunter, and Venom 3. Yeah, it's got a ton of competition.
Venom, of course.
This might be the only one I watch in theaters. Then
I would not blame you.
We have the boys. We have the boys. So
yeah, that's true. We do have the boys.
Yeah, the boys is going to be better than all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, we were just like, me and my buddy were talking last night. We're just like, why the hell they're putting Sydney Sweeney over all the marketing. Why the hell did they not just make this the Sydney Sweeney Spider-Woman movie? Like, that movie easily would have cleared $1 million alone. Like, why the hell are they putting boring ass, non-acting Dakota Johnson as Madam Web? Another casting decision that makes absolutely no sense. Because Madam Web,
we're recording this. Sorry, we're recording this on Monday. I think Madam Web comes out in 2 days.
Even better.
I still have not decided if I want to go watch that on the big screen.
Listen,
I have too much PTSD from Morbius.
Listen, there's a reason why they are pulling back the review embargo only a day before the movie opens. There is a reason for that. Let me put it that
Scary
way.
stuff.
They have
Scary stuff.
absolutely no faith in this movie, and they are hoping that it blows up and becomes another meme like Morbius. I hope that you understand that.
Yeah. So I like that this is the only prominent Marvel project this year. Because I look back at 4 years ago, the 2020 Super Bowl, we had that whole like Disney Plus teaser where it was like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, the universe is expanding. And it was just like giving me a headache. Like, why is all this stuff? Plus, half the characters were dead. But
Right.
why is all this stuff happening? And look, I think we've had a lot of cases lately of Marvel delivering stuff that feels like stuff we've seen before. We've also had situations of Marvel fans falling victim to their own expectations. Ultimately, I'm not expecting this to be the best movie ever or anything, but I think as long as Ryan Reynolds gets to cook and we get some fun humor and action scenes, and I don't care too much about the cameos. Just do them well if they happen. We've seen some done well in Phase 4 and 5, so definitely that's up to the execution. I will say though, the lack of Zazie Beetz does sadden me a little bit, considering the whole gang is back. But I feel like the rest of the people, like Rob Delaney and Brianna Hildebrand, probably aren't in the movie that much.
Yeah.
Like it's probably just going to be Deadpool and Wolverine time hopping.
Will Rob
alone.
Delaney be in this more than he was in Argyle?
That is the question, after all.
More than he was in Dead Reckoning.
Or in Dead Reckoning.
Right.
Exactly.
To be honest, I completely forgot that he was in Argyle already, and I only saw that movie like a week
Yeah,
ago.
me too. I would say Emma Corrin, was she in this trailer?
So they
was they in this trailer? Sorry.
So there were actually a couple of different instances where I like, is she, because she's supposed to be the villain in this, Cassandra Nova, right? Because that's the big thing, is that like aside from all the cameos and all the returning Deadpool players, right, the big two names that were listed were Matthew MacFayden and Emma Corrin. And there is one shot where you briefly see the back of someone that's bald, and that was revealed to be Cassandra Nova. But you don't see their face. That's the thing.
Okay, so
yeah, so you probably have to look it up, but you would probably have to look it up. Yeah, as far as like the actual villainy of it goes, like I said, I'm gonna be interested to see like what the actual plot is, because the only thing that we know for a fact is that Wade Wilson is kidnapped and recruited by the TVA. And like I said, the whole big thing that's been hinted at is the fact that he's going to be used by them as part of like their attempt to put together a new team of multiversal heroes in order to combat the growing threat of Kang and other multiversal threats. And obviously they're building up towards Secret Wars, which means they'll eventually introduce Doctor Doom and the Beyonders and Molecule Man at some point as well. But as of right now, like I said, we'll see. Also, like I said, we still have to wait for Fantastic Four, because I have a feeling that the other property that's going to be setting up a lot for Secret Wars will be Fantastic Four, since that has been revealed to not only be another multiversal story that does not take place in the main MCU timeline, but also will be a cosmic movie as well, where they're going to be traveling around in space. There was one other thing that I was going to bring up before I hopped to the other trailers as well, but I'm currently forgetting it. But all that I will say is that the lack of overarching superhero content definitely opens the doors for there to be some other movies that break out in 2024. Like I said, I'm particularly looking forward to, even though these movies look dumb, I'm looking forward to Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm looking forward to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm looking forward to Alex Garland's Civil War. A lot more interesting movies that we have opening up later on the year. It's set to be an interesting summer slate, to say the least. But what was interesting is that I didn't actually catch that many trailers other than Deadpool 3. I mean, I saw we got the Fall Guy trailer, which I'm like, okay, that's just kind of more of the same. There's not really that much that trailer gave us that was new, other than the fact that it's like, okay, it's going to be Ryan Reynolds. It's going to be Ryan Gosling. It's going to be Emily Blunt. Ryan Reynolds just infected my brain, I guess. David Leitch is directing.
That's all.
Also, can we talk about the fact that like 3 days after David Leitch was announced to be directing the new Jurassic World movie, almost every news publication was like, nope. He took one look at it.
Even less than 3 days. Like,
it was something. It might have been a day.
You don't want to see a raptor with a gun?
It might have been a whole day. Listen. Well, it's not just a raptor with a
raptor
gun.
Stuntsman.
Exactly. It's a raptor stuntsman doing gun fu. That's the biggest thing. And I still love that, like, as much money as those movies have made, David Leitch is like, yeah, direct one of those pieces of shit? Absolutely not. I'm sorry. Like, there's only so much you can do with dinosaurs. And he's like, these need to be horror movies, not action movies. That's why the last couple have sucked. And then returning trailer for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. We got a little bit more screen time with it, a little bit more looks at the world, even though we still don't have much to go on. Like I said, the biggest thing about this movie is that this is going to be more traditional apes as opposed to the first three movies, which were more so showing the transition from regular society into the world of the apes. And now we're officially in the world of the apes, where the apes have become dominant and the humans have now become subservient to them as well. And it's going to be all about, like, them attempting to balance like the coexistence with the conquest. And so that's going to be interesting. But the two other trailers that we got first ever looks at that will both be releasing later this year. The first one being Wicked Part 1, directed by John M. Chu of Now You See Me 2 and Crazy Rich Asians. The films will be starring Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo as the titular Glinda the Good and Elphaba. Do you guys have any familiarity with the Wicked property specifically in terms of how it ties into the Wizard of Oz? Anything at all?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
So basically, to give you like the basic breakdown, lowdown, the Wicked is a prequel. It was created as a Broadway play that was then adapted into a novel that serves as a prequel to L. Frank Baum's iconic classic, The Wizard of Oz, which essentially sees Elphaba and Glinda as they respectively trained in Oz under the wizard, and kind of what led to the rift between them that led to Elphaba. The way that I describe it is that it's basically the X-Men First Class.
It's like Oz the Great and Powerful.
It's literally X-Men First Class of the Wizard of Oz, and we don't acknowledge Oz the Great and Powerful. That one is just like,
yeah, I saw that in theaters.
I didn't mind that.
It's fine, but the problem is that it doesn't really fit into the mainstream canon, because the way that movie works is that movie shows that, like, oh, the wizard was like this other guy that came in after Elphaba and Glinda were already established, but like it directly contradicts Wicked, which shows that, like, no, these two trained under him before they found out that, like, he's not actually.
Have you seen the musical?
I have, actually. I've seen it. I saw it. Yeah, I saw it actually back when I was 5 years old. I saw it, like, the original run with it was made iconic in the late 90s, early 2000s with Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel and their portrayals of Elphaba and Glinda. And they killed it in the role. It really is one of the most iconic musicals ever made. And so naturally, when they were adapting it into a movie, I'm skeptical, because in addition to the fact that I am always very skeptical of these big budget live action CGI filled musicals and how, they usually don't get them right, I'm also skeptical because Wicked is one that is very, very near and dear to my heart. I really, really enjoy this musical. I think it's an incredible story. I think it's very, very ahead of its time in terms of tackling basically just straight up racism, because the whole thing about the movie is that they all shit over Elphaba collectively because she's born with green skin. Like, that's the whole thing. And she's the only person that's like, oh, we can't have someone with green skin studying magic? Are you kidding me? This will not do. And it's like the whole thing is like Glinda's like the only one to like actually like, it starts as like, oh, she takes pity on her, and then she's like, oh, she's actually like really talented, like more talented than the rest of you ratchet bitches over here, And it's basically like kind of, but it's all about like how like the political machinations of it like kind of prevent it. Now, do I trust that they're actually going to be able to tackle all the nuances that the musical did so well? Absolutely not, especially because this is going to be a big budget mainstream movie made, for a mainstream audience. Not to mention the fact that this is another part 1 of 2. Part 2 will be released the following year in November of 2025. But just based off of this first look trailer, what did you guys think of it?
It looks like a Fantastic Beasts movie. I don't know. Like I said, I know nothing about the musical, but you told me that Jeff Goldblum is the wizard. I'm there. That's all I need.
Yeah, I saw that Jeff Goldblum is a wizard, and I'm like, watch him steal the entire movie again, because that casting was almost a little bit too good. It's almost a little bit too good. Gal, what did you think of the trailer?
Again, I have no attachment to it, so I don't know. It'll depend on how well received the movie is. If I seek it out in theaters, I think some of the visuals look good. Others look okay. If I do watch this movie, it'll probably be just for Cynthia Erivo.
Yeah.
The rest I don't care too much about. But, I'm just a little skeptical because, I don't know, musical movies lately. I really like John M. Chu's work with In the Heights, West Side Story. That was on a whole nother level. But, like, I'm kind of like, we just got Mean Girls, which I was like, okay, we've seen that. And Color Purple was decent. But I really think, Wonka was right.
Wonka was solid.
We don't need to criticize Wonka here. But I just think this could either be entertaining or just kind of lame for me. Again,
Yeah.
I'm not someone who's been attached to the original Wicked, so this isn't
Right.
something that really calls me to go watch it on the big
Right.
screen. So it's really just going to depend on how much people I trust recommend it, how good Cynthia Erivo is in it, and so on.
It's got a lot going against it, unfortunately. Like I said, the CGI makes it look very, very artificial. The fact that outside of the diehard musical fans who grew up with this and who are very familiar with the property, I don't know how many movie people are actually looking forward to it, especially given the kind of the amount of kind of really not so good live action jukebox musicals that we've gotten recently, and not
And
to mention the fact.
that's
That's
like the
what.
problem, I think, with the part 1 and part 2.
Right, and the other problem
'cause
being the part 1 and 2 of it all. The fact of like how many people have been complaining recently. Again, as good as Across the Spider-Verse was, how many people were complaining about the cliffhanger ending. I was even saying that about Dune, which again, a lot of people said that it was necessary for that to be split up into 2 parts. But I was still the opinion that I'm like, yeah, make it all as one 4.5 hour long.
See, I remember when that came out, it was like when that news came out, everyone was like, but you have to understand, if you've seen the musical, it's during the intermission, the song before, that'll be a perfect ending for this movie. But what about people who are like mainstream goers? Is this
Exactly.
movie made for
And
them
newsflash,
too?
as somebody who
Pretty
has
long
seen
intermission there.
it is a
the
very
whole
long
year.
intermission, not to mention the fact that as somebody who has seen the musical, once again, like every other instance where they split the movie into 2 parts, you could have done it as one. Yeah, easily could have done it as one. Make it like a 2.
Fast X.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole different matter right there. That's just them just fucking like flexing. There's no reason for that movie to be multiple, for any of those movies to be in multiple parts, especially that franchise. But yeah, and like the biggest red flag for me, aside from the fact that I'm already worried that they're not going to make Elphaba. I like Cynthia Erivo, I really do, but I'm already worried that they're not going to make Elphaba as interesting and compelling a character as she was in the original stage play. Ariana Grande as Glinda, man. Oh my God, that is a recipe for disaster just waiting to happen right there. Because like yet another instance where, again, personality, incredible singer, not sold on her acting ability. Because the fact that really the only basis that I have for her is fucking her Nickelodeon days, like where again she is
Don't
She was
known
good
know.
in that.
good for playing the ditzy
Yeah.
blonde. But the whole thing about Glinda is that Glinda is fooling you into thinking that she's the ditzy blonde. She's using that as a facade so that she can like really, because she, like I said, because when you first meet Glinda, she is a conniving ladder climber. She is all about making it to the top, and she uses her perceived ditziness as like a mask and a facade for that. So the ditziness, yeah, Grande's got that in spades, but in terms of the actual nuance, that I'm not so sure about.
Do you guys know Ariana Grande was in Zoolander 2 apparently?
That doesn't surprise me one bit. That movie had so many cameos, but outside of the funniest joke in the trailer, which was them killing Justin Bieber, I never actually watched that movie and never had any desire.
Yeah, me
to.
neither. Love the first one though.
Yeah. And the last trailer that we'll be talking about before we wrap up and get out of here is the trailer for Twisters, the John M. Chu, not John M. Chu, the Lee Isaac Chung, his follow-up
Big
to
upgrade.
his Academy Award nominated Minari. And this movie stars Daisy Edgar Jones, Glenn Powell, and Anthony Ramos. And I mean, of all of the IP from the last 30 years that you could have exploited to make a sequel for, just why? I'm scratching my head at this one because I'm pretty sure we've already proven that like every single Roland Emmerich movie that's come out in the last like 15 years has pretty much bombed and been like rightfully so shat upon, like Independence Day Resurgence, Moonfall, all of the shitty looking like and ones that look like Roland Emmerich movies that actually being them, like your Geostorms, your all of your Gerard Butler-esque movies.
Greenland or some shit.
Greenland, like
God.
Hey, do
so-
not disrespect Greenland. That was a very good movie.
Well, I guess because like the
I haven't
original
seen it.
well, the original Twister was made as one of several movies that was trying to capitalize on the on like the Roland Emmerich wave of disaster movies that came in the 90s. Your Independence Days, your Godzillas. And they made so many of them. Your Twisters, your Volcanoes, your Dante's Peaks, your Edge of Tomorrows. There's a bunch of others that I'm missing.
You mean Day After Tomorrow?
Day After Tomorrow. That's what I meant. Like I think there was like an Ice
I don't
Storm
like
one. Deep Impact, or like the late 90s was chock full of these disaster movies where it's like the enemy is not man, the enemy is nature. And so like that's already a stupid enough premise because there's only so much footage, especially today. Like the 90s, you could get away with it, but there's only so much footage that you can show where like the people are running away from giant weather systems that roar like monsters. I'm like, okay, this is not Goliath from fucking Loki. Like the weather does not malicious. It just does what it does. And so I always found that funny, but like it's a tired out trope to begin with. And like I personally, besides the fact that like this really doesn't have that big of a cast, it's kind of just like, okay, like the star is once again the star is once again.
I'd say the cast is pretty big.
I mean, the cast is good, but like there's no movie stars really aside from Glenn Powell. It's just like, okay, who can we get and just throw into this, you know, in terms of like, okay, who's going to be like the most interesting in terms of like just basically providing commentaries. You just watch idiots like run away and get swept up by giant twisters. This is, once again, it's a very similar premise to the first one, which is like basically Storm Chasers, the movie. You know, whatever reality show that is, but then it's like, oh, they get in over their head. It's like, well, what did you expect? You're chasing fucking these giant ass twisters. Of course, this is what's going to happen, you know? So it's just like one of those things where it's like, as a premise, it's already a weak enough premise to begin with. And the fact that this is being posited as like one of the biggest summer movies, like this is getting released only a week before Deadpool 3. And like, I can't imagine that this is going to do a lot of business. I can't imagine that this is going to be well received. So like, I just, the motivation for making this, I'm just like, I'm really, really confused. And in addition to those three that I listed, you've also got Kieran Shipka, Katie M. O'Brien, who's going to crush it in a month in Love Lies Bleeding, and David Corn Sweat, Superman himself, and Brandon Perea, who already starred in another disaster movie that was more interesting, Jordan Peele's Nope, when that came out 2 years ago now. But like, do you guys have any interest in this as far as this goes? Like, did you guys have any interest when this was first announced? Because I got to say, I'm still scratching my head as far as what the motivation for them making this was.
You go first.
Well, I started being curious when Lee Isaac Chung was hired to direct it, because, I mean, not many directors get nominated for the Oscar for Best Director and then choose just such an unapologetic genre film like this as their next project. Not to mention, I think he directed a bit of The Mandalorian, or was it Boba Fett?
Yeah, Mandalorian. Yeah.
So he's either someone who knows how to have fun. I mean, he is someone who knows how to have fun with his films, but he's also maybe one who's going to elevate this movie. That's why I'm curious. I haven't seen the first one. I would like to at one point. But I think this could go either way. It could either suck because the whole time in the trailer, I was thinking, okay, they're trying to get away from a twister that's destroying everything. How long is that going to last? Like, okay, we got to safety. Movie's over. Like, what? How else could you make a plot for that? And then, look, huge fan of Glenn Powell. Hitman is coming out this summer, and I've seen it. He's fantastic in it. Daisy Edgar Jones. I don't know if y'all have seen her in Fresh or in Normal People. One of the best talents of her rising generation right now. Anthony Ramos is great. Brandon Perea. I think the cinematography looks kind of Nope-esque, but then the CGI kind of. I think it could either be like just a fun movie or a terrible one. But I'm not going to rush out to see this one in theaters the way I would for Deadpool 3.
Yeah. I guess just like my thought process being that like this doesn't even look like dumb fun, you know, because like it's Glenn Powell doing his shtick, and I'm like, I get it. It is kind of funny though how many similarities this does share with the original, where the original as well is kind of like this smorgasbord of cast people. It's like it's built it like that one. It like had a lot of people in it, but no like really big. It's like Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt are the leads. You have Carrie Elwes as the bad guy. Philip Seymour Hoffman
very big
is
actors.
Like given like a really one of his many crazy supporting performances. It's just like like I said, it is very funny to me how many similarities they have. And like the first one has kind of like gone down to become like this cult hit. I'll be interested to see like if they make any references to it, but I can't imagine why they would, especially given that like two of the biggest stars in that movie have unfortunately, you know, died. So there is that. But I'll be interested to see, Luke, as somebody who specializes in big effects-driven movies. I mean, where does this rank on the Luke meter of upcoming big-budget effects-filled movies?
Well, I can tell you, Dom, this broke the Luke meter. I've been waiting for this trailer for so long. You listed all those disaster movies. I love a large number of them. Disaster movies are my bread and butter. They're my one thing that that like I love more than anyone else. So the moment this dropped, I was like, yes, finally, Twisters. They did the whole aliens thing, just add an S, $, and it's just a perfect summer movie that I'm anticipating. You got Glenn Powell, big cowboy hat, much like Steven Yeun, also with a big cowboy hat. I'm just ready to go see some tornadoes.
Yeah.
I can't get enough disaster movies. That's just me. I can't explain. I just love seeing destruction.
No, I get it
from nature.
I think the cast is what could save it, just because there's such great actors.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it is a lot of good actors. It's just that, like, I'm going to be interested to see, like, again, like you said, Daisy Edgar-Jones from Fresh, Anthony Ramos, you know, who's been like trying to make the awards run recently. You know, it's Superman himself, who I didn't even notice in the trailer. Glenn Powell. I mean, Glenn Powell's really
Sasha Lane's in it too.
Right, Sasha Lane is in it too. As well. I caught her in the trailer. I'm just going to be interested to see like how, because like I said, it's not like any of these guys have really done, aside from Brandon Perea, it's not like any one of these guys have really done one of these like big budget effects driven movies before. And like I said, it's such a weird, like that's a if
Glenn Powell was in
right, but that's what I'm saying. He's the only right, but that's what I'm saying. He's the only one. Like none of these other guys really have. Okay. Well, actually, no, I'm wrong, because Anthony Ramos was in one of the Godzilla movies. I think he was in
a
Godzilla.
lot of them.
He was in Godzilla.
He was in Godzilla. He was in
Rise of the Beast.
A lot of stuff.
Oh yeah, he was in Rise of the Beast, and he was terrible in that. But
not Wiki.
That movie just wasn't good.
This hardcore disagree. It's not. It's nothing.
He was better than Witwicky.
It's nothing compared to the Bay masterpieces, but it was solid.
Preach.
It was solid. It was solid. No, Luke, come on. You know I'm there. You know I'm right there with you.
You guys are too kind.
Oh, I'm not there with you with Rise of the Beast, but I'm with you.
No, I don't think you seem to understand that back in 2022, in honor of Ambulance, Luke and I ranked every single Michael Bay movie that had ever been released.
That must have been difficult because maybe only one of them is actually good.
Have you watched all of Michael Bay's movies? They are all. He really
not every single one, but
he only has a few
hate
stinkers.
most of them.
He only has a few stinkers. His stinkers are.
I think I only like 13 Hours in The Rock.
13 Hours, The Rock, Pain and Gain, Bad Boys 2, first Bad Boys, first two
Pain
Transformers.
and Gain and Bad Boys 2 are awful.
Ambulance.
Sorry.
You're so wrong. Oh, if only we could
get him off the stream.
Get him off. If only we could make you understand just how wrong you are. But anyways, the point being
is like one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
The first one? Or the second one?
No, the second one.
The second one's incredible. The second one's legitimately one of the best action movies I've ever seen. That one is hilarious. They drive around an entire city with a dude just with Michael Shannon stuck in their trunk, and they literally have like a scene where rats are having sex, and they have an entire chase throughout Cuba in the last 30 minutes for no reason at all. That movie.
What is it with Bay and animals having sex? How did we get to Michael Bay?
Because
all roads lead to Michael Bay.
All roads lead to Michael Bay. That's
this looks like, you know what Twisters reminds me of?
What?
San Andreas. I don't know if y'all have seen it.
I love San Andreas.
San Andreas.
All the destruction.
Oh my
God. That's actually one of the more tolerable bad Dwayne Johnson movies. But I just hope this is better than that.
A shipping container crushes Mr. Fantastic.
Oh my God. I'm just looking back. I'm just looking back, and I'm like, oh man, San Andreas. I'm like, now that's a name I haven't heard in a long, long time. Like one of those, because that movie turns 10 years old next year, which is absolutely fucking insane. Anyway, so the only other thing that I wanted to cover before we get out of here is the fact that apparently there was another Inside Out 2 trailer that dropped, and I guess I missed that. But my other question is, like, are we looking forward to Inside Out 2? Because Inside Out was like one of the few Pixar movies where I'm like, yeah, I could actually see them doing like a pretty interesting trailer to this. But considering like how far Pixar has fallen in the last couple of years, like, are we looking forward to this one at all? Especially since they scrapped two of the cast members. Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling will not be returning and are being replaced by Tony Hale. And I forgot who they're going to replace the character of Disgust. Like, are we looking forward to this at all?
It's not like I'm excited for it, but I'll definitely see it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I'll see it. Inside Out's in my top 5 Pixar movies, and is, if you ask me, one of the only perfect Pixar movies that they released in the last decade. But yeah, I'm skeptical, to say the least, of really any upcoming animated, because apparently Wish was such a big box office flop that they had to move it to that. They're shuttered their Burbank animation studios, and they are apparently moving it to Canada for cheaper tax write-offs, because that's how
fast track Moana 2.
Yeah, they fast track Moana 2 apparently with a lot of AI. They were using a lot of AI to fast track that. Like you even had like multiple people coming out and saying that, like, yeah, AI is basically the future of animation. And I'm like, well, there goes our favorite medium. I'm only now trusting it if it comes from Ghibli or Guillermo del Toro. Now I am not trusting it if it comes from any place else. I mean, I already had like gotten off Illumination a while ago, and DreamWorks sort of got me back interested with what's it called, with the Puss in Boots movie, and I think that DreamWorks has something coming out this year that actually looks pretty interesting, but I can't remember the name of it. But
They just had Orion in the Dark that came out.
oh yeah,
And now
that
they have
was
Kung Fu
them.
Panda 4.
That was them. Yeah, that's
No,
right.
but Inside Out 2, I think looks really good. Like Moana 2 sounds like one of the most pointless sequels in the history of cinema. But Inside Out 2, I think there's potential there. You talk about how far Pixar has fallen. Like they haven't made a straight up bad movie ever. Like Elemental is still a solid watch.
I do like
Lightyear's
Elemental.
still
Elemental is
enjoyable.
solid.
I like
Turning
Elemental.
Red's great.
I hated Turning Red.
Luca's awesome.
I hated Turning Red. And
Soul's amazing.
Lest we not forget their first return to theaters after COVID, Lightyear. Let us not forget that one.
Lightyear was fun. This I think could be either really great or really unnecessary, but I'm excited for it. Moana 2 sounds pointless. Zootopia 2 could be okay. Toy Story 5,
2,
Moana 2,
I have
Frozen
faith in.
3
Toy Story
That's
5
a warrant
absolutely
pretty
pointless.
Frozen 3 after that.
They're
second
already
one, I'm
pushing
like,
it.
no.
Like 4 was really good, but they were already pushing it by that one existing at all.
Yeah, exactly. No, they need to let, because I rewatched Toy Story 3 at the beginning, like when this year first started, and I'm like, yeah, they needed to let Sleeping Dogs lie with that one. They kind of almost
Yeah.
ruined a good thing. As surprisingly like not bad as Toy Story 4 was. I'm like, okay, this could. I'm like, the opening scene was enough to like lock me in, and the animation is of course gorgeous.
I just have my wish list from Disney if they're pumping out sequels. Cars 4, Bolt 2,
Oh.
Tangled 2.
Well, they're never
But
gonna
that-
make another
Big
Bolt
Hero
movie for whatever
7.
reason.
Big Hero 7 is what we need.
Big Hero 7.
That would be
that's-
much better than Moana 2.
I would
and
agree
Toy
with
Story
that.
5.
It's like I just don't understand what their motivation is for. Well, actually, I do. It's always like whatever movies make the most money. But I'm just like, really, like you have this like entire untapped potential, and you're Disney. Like everyone knows your brand. So
Or Encanto 2.
yeah, Encanto. Yeah, right. Where's the Encanto sequel? You know how much money that would make?
Encanto 2.
Encanto 2. If they did that, no. But so with that being said, that's really it. That's pretty much like all of the Super Bowl trails. Like I said, I'm gonna unfortunately be torturing myself next weekend. Madam Web on YOLO will hop on for that one along with Dontre, and then we're gonna be wrapping up February with Avatar: The Last Airbender live action Netflix show. We'll be seeing that, and then we're gonna be kicking March off with Dune. March is gonna be a very, very big month, so stay tuned. Also, I'm gonna keep hyping it up for every episode. Luke, this summer, man, it's happening. Talking Lost. It's finally happening for the 20th.
Is that what we're naming it?
That's the official name. Talking Lost. You know. Well, I was gonna call it All Is Lost, but like I said, we would have faced copyright infringement from the J.C. Chandor movie. So I figured that wouldn't have worked out so well. So Gal, if you haven't, I don't know if you've watched the show Lost at all, but we're planning on making that our next big TV recap for the 2024 into 2025 season as well. Probably with the amount of episodes, it'll stretch into 2026. We're going to be recapping the entire show for its
2026.
Yeah, right.
Jesus,
There's a lot of episodes. There's a lot of episodes, Luke. I think there's over 100 episodes. I'm pretty sure.
I was gonna say that we've all suited up in the Deadpool fashion, right?
Yes.
Is that all of us? Yeah.
Yes. All three of us. Yeah. The one instance where I actually wore the appropriate themed shirt for the podcast topic that we were talking about. So with that being said, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you guys for indulging me. I know that it's about a regular time for you guys, so that makes sense. So, like I said, we'll be looking forward to all
waking up for us.
Of course, come on. I would. When it comes to this podcast, there are very few things that I would not do. Take that with a grain of salt. Anyways, Luke, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
They can follow me at Luk Reviews on Instagram, but especially YouTube because my bi-yearly video is out and it's performing unusually well. So thank you to everyone who has watched that.
Of course.
Or if you haven't, Luk Reviews.
That video was so good. I'm like, this is better than like almost all the top 10 lists that I've seen recently, possibly including mine. So naturally, I had to share it because I'm like, yeah, this is the tits. This is where it's at. What's it called? A great list as per always. Gal, where can the good people follow you on the interwebs?
Film Toppings on Instagram and YouTube. And speaking of top 10s, me and the movie nerd himself was on to talk about the best films of 2023. So definitely check that out. We had some differing lists, some of the same picks. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah.
Yeah, we almost went 4 for 4 with the same number one. If only our top 10 worst lists had lined up a little more. And of course, you guys, it happens. You know, the worst is always the most subjective, I find. And you guys can, of course, follow me with everything going on at Movie Nerd Reviews across all platforms. If you guys actually woke up to watch with this, I commend you for it. If not, this episode is available on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed there, this episode will actually be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts later on today. And as always, people, 12 seasons in a short film, and watch more fucking movies. We'll see you guys next week for Madam Web. Yay!